Hello, I'm Shadow Blizzard 3000. Well, you know, all these internet critics, they have their months. You have Disney December and Nostalgia Ween from the Nostalgia Critic. You have Month of Miyazaki from Heizu Otaku. So I thought I should make a month of my own. So I'm going to dedicate all of June to the one studio that made me an anime fan that I am today. That is the studio B-Train. Yes, I've talked this studio up so many times in so many different videos. I've defended them, I've just done a lot of stuff. I've done a whole retrospect series. I've done a music video, which you unfortunately can't find on YouTube, but I'll show you where you can find it if you look in the description of this video. And now I'm going to start going through their anime. Now, having already covered Tsubasa Chronicle, the Halo Legends short, and the Batman Gotham Knights short, I won't be doing those ones again. Those are done, those are covered. So, what do I start with then? Well, what better thing to start with than the show that put them on the map in the first place? So get yourselves ready for some drama, mystery, action, intrigue, and some very sexy girls wielding some serious firepower in Noir, this 2001 series, and first of what would become their Girls of Guns trilogy. Now, Noir is very much the show that put this fledgling little company on the map and rocketed them to fame, fortune, and controversy. Well, maybe the controversy would come a little later, but the fame I'm not exactly exaggerating about. Back in 2001, B-Train probably would have just been known as IG's little sub-company that made a bunch of mediocre video game to anime adaptations. But this show is what easily broke the mold. And it's also the very show that probably helped launch Yuki Kajiura's musical career as a composer for film and television to center stage. Now, you may not believe me today when I say Noir is a big deal. After all, the popularity has faded quite a bit, and it's gotten to be a little more of a cult status. And, well, you kind of probably have to put up with this.
Also, I'm sorry to anybody who really liked this series, but I can't say I'm a huge fan. Let me put it this way. I've owned the entire ADV box set since 2005. It was even given to me for free. And in the 6 years since I've had it, I've never been able to finish it because every time I put a disc in my DVD player, I fall asleep. Really, somebody out there might enjoy it. Somebody out there probably loves the whole girls with guns thing, and you probably also like Mad Lax and El Cazador de la Bruja, too.
Or this.
Okay, to explain a little better, the Dot Hack franchise, Tsubasa Chronicle, and several B-Train girls with gun shows like Noir and Mad Lax are known for their heart-crushingly gorgeous music way more than their actual writing quality, and all of them are thanks to Yuki Kajiura.
Ugh, you people are the very reason they're making this shit now. Well, point is, Noir was highly regarded in its day, ranking second in New Type's Show of the Year. Now, while I do say this show has quite a bit of action to it, Noir is, at its core, a relatively quiet action drama centering around two female assassins in France. Muriel, the lone survivor of her family line, and Kirika, a girl with no memory, but an unshakable instinct that leads her to kill for reasons she can't understand. Trailing our two heroines is a powerful crime syndicate known as the Soldats, led by a priestess named Altena, along with a girl named Chloe, who could be presumed to be Altena's protege. Although Altena is a high priestess in the Soldats, she has come to believe the organization is largely corrupted by greed, and it's Altena's ultimate goal to unleash the deadly killer in Kirika, unleashing what she refers as the true Noir, as a means to return the group to its pure roots. My discovery of Noir is a lot like some of the other anime I own, just kind of that luck of the draw and being in the right place at the right time. I'm pretty certain I discovered it through video on demand with my cable service, right at that ripe time when I was just really hungry for all things anime. I think I also discovered Madlax about the same time, which I ended up gravitating to a little more, but that's for a later video. And this was also right after .hack signed, so the staff combo gave me extra incentive to come back. My initial reaction was just a little lukewarm. It's not that I didn't like it, I thought it was rather good, but it just didn't hold me quite enough to make me say, yeah, this is terrific, and I must keep watching. But it was some years later I started revisiting it. First I attempted to buy the individual single DVD volumes, but it was still another short while before I finally bought a full set and sat down to watch it. After my full viewing, I did appreciate the show much more. After a recent rewatch, I still found new things to like about it, and new details I missed the first time through. That's what's so great about a lot of B-Train shows. There's always something new to find. It's hard to believe that the show is now more than 13 years old. It's not the oldest show I own in my collection, but it's definitely among there. So, how does this thing hold up after so long? Well, let's take a look. The animation still looks pretty good for its day. It was also filmed and broadcasted in anamorphic widescreen, which was pretty uncommon for television back then. And compared to other cell shows of the period, it's actually pretty good looking and pretty fluid. The colors are also pretty low-key and restrained. The one exception seems to be Chloe, who has purple hair. I'm actually curious as to why, with such a natural color palette, why they gave her purple hair, but it doesn't bother me. It's more of a curiosity than anything else. The show notably lacks any real blood in its action scenes, which seems to bother a lot of people out there. I've read this was because TV Tokyo at the time had a no-blood policy for its shows. It doesn't really bother me that there's no blood, because, well, when does anime ever do bloody action in a subtle manner? And to me, adding gushing fountains of blood in this show would have really detracted from the experience and tone of the show, so I don't think it's really that much of a miss. Oh, and here's something I almost never bring up, but I gotta talk about the eye catches in this show. These eye catches are really strange. The neon lettering and the guitar riff really makes them feel like they belong in a late 80s or early 90s sci-fi cyberpunk show. No, really, what the hell? As for Noir's story, it's very deep and complex, which is why I think so many critics like J.O. or Mars Girl tend to pick on it, or retroactively just try to apply Kajiura's name as the only reason as to why people watched it or even enjoyed it. It's also why I can't really sum up the entire show start to finish. Oh hell, I have a hard enough time just explaining to people what it's about. It may take a few viewings to truly grasp everything behind it, because this is far from your simple girls with guns plot. Religious symbolism and the philosophy and the nature of man that comes up so often, especially with Altena. She's often saying her signature phrase. But still, this story isn't totally perfect. In fact, much of the early episodes really take their time to build into the real plot. Several episodes play much like a Villain of the Week show with some random mook to kill. At first I thought this was a way to really kind of pad the series just to make it a little bit longer, but it feels more like it actually is building to the relationship shared by Muriel and Karika. Still, at times it does feel formulaic, rinse and repeat, so it's not perfect. But it's really when the thick of the plot starts to develop about midway through the show that it gets truly interesting. But believe me, you will need to keep up on all the episodes, so don't think you can skip through half and be just fine. In fact, this is something that also kind of boggles me. A lot of people say the show derails, but I think it does get better in the second half. Noir is also credited with maintaining a relatively realistic storyline. There's little supernatural or fantasy elements to the show, but frankly, the gun-fu action doesn't really make me think of it as a really serious or realistic show. If anything, I'd say fandom is more realism. To the show's credit, it also doesn't feature a lot of fan service. The characters are drawn realistically, so no one is bulging. There really is no gynaxing to speak of, so this show truly does want to bank on its story, not just on its sex appeal. But you can't talk about Noir without talking about its most acclaimed aspect, and that is its music. I've said before that this is probably the show that really launched Yuki Kajiura's career as a composer for film and television. This being her third animation soundtrack was what really caught a lot of attention from people. with its eclectic mix of synth, pop, opera, Celtic with traditional, classical. It's everything we've come to love and know about Yuki today. It's also among my top favorite soundtracks by her. And it gives off a very Euro flavor to it, which really adds that sense of perfect setting for noir. And boy, this series really loves its leitmotifs. Salva Nos in particular, which is often used as the action piece. Think something like A Song of Storm and Fire in Tsubasa Chronicle, or Mommy's theme in Madoka Magica. The opening theme song is by the pop duo Alley Project, and I do like it, but it almost seems out of place. It seems like it belongs in a series that is much more of, say, a classical noir or much more a regular action show. It's not a bad addition to the show, it's just kind of strange. The ending is, yeah, well, it's largely kind of forgettable. Which is kind of ironic, seeing as that theme seems to be mixed into the score quite a bit. Which in itself is a little more ironic, considering that theme song wasn't written by Kajiura at all. But really, there is so much to love about this OST, even if you've never watched the show. Maybe you're a Kajiura fan, or you're really getting into her music. In that case, I'd really strongly suggest just listening to the OST, even if you don't end up watching the show, just because the value of it alone is really great. Even though this isn't one of my most favorite soundtracks, I still can say that with confidence. And it's not often I say that about a soundtrack, period. Now, Noir was licensed by ADV Films until about 2009, when Funimation acquired it from ADV's liquidation sale. This is the complete ADV collection. I bought it on eBay. The box set is all the singles contained in slim case DVDs, but they still retain the original extras, including the Easter eggs, interviews and audio commentary from the English dubbing staff and cast, as well as the Japanese staff and cast. Plus, there's also a really bizarre parody by the ADV crew, made up entirely of sock puppets. It's strange, but it is rather funny. And recently, this show also saw a Japanese Blu-ray edition, and we're not talking throwing old video onto a Blu-ray disc and calling it a day, but rather a full digital transpose from the original 35mm print. Damn, that's some fine effort. And the Japanese Blu-ray also features the ADV Films dub, but with no English subtitles. So do keep that in mind if you're really hardcore and looking to upgrade your collection. The dubbing quality is actually pretty well done for this show of this age. Shelley Colleen Black plays Muriel, and Monica Rial plays Kurika. Now, some complain Rial plays the roles too soft-spoken, but to me that's what really emulates Kurika, a mysterious and soft-spoken girl. I will say, though, sometimes she really is too soft, but that could be an issue with the sound mixing more than her performance. Hilary Haig, whom I really loved in Chrono Crusade, plays Chloe. And Tiffany Grant deserves a lot of praise too, considering she's playing the villain and she never hams it up. She plays Altina right to the note, cold, calculating, but with that strange, eerie tone of sweetness that just so contradicts that character in so many ways. But not in a way that's betraying the original character either, because that is what Altina is, a person very much clouded by her hatred of humanity, yet very deeply caring when you see her with someone like Kurika and Chloe. Noir is, and always will be in my mind, a really fantastic show. Deep with plot, a good mystery, something really different from everything else in this genre. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, like my retrospect, you might think I'm stumbling a bit over myself, because I've had some criticisms for the show in the past. I still do have some, but I think they're pretty minor flaws. It's not a perfect show, but it's definitely a good one. My recent rewatch, I think, is really what helped renew my interest and appreciation for the show, and why I'm speaking much more highly of it now than when I have in some of my earlier videos. I suppose my sort of pish-posh attitude against it has come from the fact that this series is so popular and so beloved. Now, it sounds like I'm saying it's popular, now it sucks, but that's really not the case, because I feel like the series is so popular that it's kind of overshadowed some of the other and just as good works from the studio, as well as often being cited the most when it comes to the later installments of the Girls with Guns trilogy. It's often that Mad Lax or El Cazador, which of course I will review later, get called Noir 2 or Noir 3. which is just so completely off base. Even if Noir did set the template for these later series, the shows are completely different. Not to mention the amount of discussion that has gone into this show by my fellow fans has left me feeling, well, kind of in the dust. Going back to the feeling of this show overshadowing the other works from the studio, I once again have to look to my fellow fans where I hang out at btrainfan.org, which have some of the most serious and in-depth discussions of the show that one could probably write several books out of. And as this show is the most popular among my fellow fans, it naturally occupies a lot of the discussion on the forums. But I'm serious when I say a typical day can play out quite a bit like this.
So what do you think it meant when Kajiura said, huh? Well, it's quite obvious she was reacting to a deep psychological reaction to her nature with being a high-profile assassin and dealing with the gravity of her original sin as a killer. Okay. I thought she just made a pondering noise of some kind. So that murder princess, yeah? How about it? I mean, it was a lot of fun, don't you think? A lot of great action scenes, cute friendship. Short, but pretty sweet, don't you think? Yes, but when compared to the masterful tapestry that is Noir, it's quite juvenile and simplistic. Noir is so deeply rich and symbolic. I mean, the way Altna sighs is so clearly an indicator of her repressed childhood memory.
Oh, my fellow Noir fans, I make fun, but I do love you so. Now, Noir also has a bit of a following among the Yuri fandom crowd, but do keep in mind that this is not an ultra-romantic Yuri story. It's a lot more subtle and downplayed, very quietly, but if you are into Yuri, you might want to check this out, just to see how Mariel and Karika's relationship really develops, and you can make up your mind for yourself if you really believe it's romantic or platonic. I also have to briefly mention that Noir is also getting a live-action version from Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert for the Starz Network, but it's currently stuck in development hell. Of course, with the proposed story plans they've been working on, it's about as related to Noir as the Super Mario Bros. Movie was related to the game. With a complete change of the period, dropping of Chloe, changing of Les Soldats from some Muslim terror group, a forced romantic interest, you might as well just put this as an entirely new show, because that's what it is. This is not Noir. This is something else. Perhaps it's just best that it remains stuck in development hell forever. So that until somebody who actually gives a shit about the show as it is, or just let it die altogether, and we can enjoy the original for time to come. I'm Shadowblazer 3000. I'm signing out.